Hey everyone, it's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and welcome to Writer Talk. And today I have romance author and YouTube extraordinaire, because you're always on YouTube, so I have to mention that, Emma Bennet. Hi,
Hello.
Emma.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me. Tell everybody where you are, because you're not in the States, right? Where are you?
I'm not in the States. I am in Wales, in a very hot Wales at the moment. We were just talking about this. Britain is not used to the heat. Our houses are not made for the heat, and we're having our second heat wave in the last few weeks, and
Wow.
everybody is just miserable. But
So
as a country, we're just collectively miserable.
so you're not used to this weather at all. You're not used to this hot weather. You don't have clothing for that hot weather either, I guess.
That's the other thing. It's like, well, what do I wear? Because it's like the seventh day it's been like this, and I have nothing to wear because we're used to, at this time of year,
Cool.
it's usually, kind of
Cooler.
and like 20 degrees in our in our Celsius. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. About 70, something like that, I guess.
And that's
Um,
been going on for 7 days.
Something like that. It feels like forever, and it's continuing forever. And
Wow.
yet, I'm so British that I still have a hot cup of tea.
Now you're drinking tea. Well, it's summer here, so I'm going to be drinking coffee in a minute. But I just want to say your hair held up really good because in the hot, I mean, my hair's curly today because it just makes no sense in blow drying it. But your hair held up good. Your hair looks good. Usually in humid and heat, a lot of people's hair gets like mine, like, curly, frizzy, wavy, but your hair looks good. You'd
Thank
never
you.
know. You'd never
Yours
know that
looks gorgeous as well. Curly
you
hair is beautiful. This
you'd
is
never
just
know you were going through a heat wave. I'll tell you that. You look fresh as a daisy. Oh, I think we froze. I bet it's the heat wave. Emma, are you punking me right now? Or did we freeze? I think we froze up. Let's see. We're going to give Emma a couple of minutes and see if it. Oh, there you go. Did you hear me talk all that
I'm
time?
definitely not punking you. No, I wasn't talking. I was waiting, but I was not punking you. I promise.
Oh, you froze. You do know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering if it's the heat. So anyway, so what I was going to do is I was going to start talking about you and your books, but now you're back. So let everybody know. Tell us about what you write.
So I write generally contemporary romance, mostly set in the UK. So my latest book is the first of a series set in a fictional town, a seaside town in Cornwall. It's called Castle Cove. And I've just finished the copy edits for the second one in that series, which is a Christmas book. So that was fun to work on at the moment. That was a little bit discombobulating. So I think that will be about my 18th book that's out in a
Wow.
couple of
So how
months.
long have you been writing? When did you start writing?
I believe it's been 13 years since my first book was published.
And how did you get into writing? How did that all start?
It all started because I'm just a very awkward person who gets set on an idea. So I read the most ridiculous article, which talked about how romance books are all formulaic and super
Mm,
easy to write, and anyone can write one. And I thought, well, I read a lot of romance, but I really don't think that it's easy to do. So I'll have a go. And it turns out that it's not easy to do at all. But I wrote a book and I self-published it, and then it was taken on by a publisher, is basically the short story. And let me tell you, it's a lot harder to do that 13 years ago than it is now, with the
yes.
knowledge that we have just so available. I mean, I didn't know. I literally just started writing a romance book. I didn't know about plotting. I mean, I knew narrative just because of absorbing so many stories, but I hadn't studied story structure. I didn't have all these wonderful creators on YouTube giving us all this information. I didn't know about all the different creative writing books out there. I just sat down and started
And
typing.
started writing. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like a dare or a challenge, would you say?
Yeah,
Just to,
exactly.
just
Yeah.
to tell that person, or just to know in your head, hey,
Yeah,
it's,
just like
it's
that's
not a
ridiculous.
formula and it's not easy. But I think all stories anyway, whether they're real or fiction, there is a formula because there's a beginning, there's a
Yes,
middle, there's an end. You're always going to
yes,
have conflict. So for somebody to say that is kind of ridiculous. And writing is not easy. I mean, sure, we can write words down on a piece of paper or type them in on our laptop, but to turn them into an actual story, that's not easy.
it's not easy. And
That's difficult.
I think romance particularly gets a bad rep
I think so too.
because it needs to have a happily ever after. And it's like, well, what's the problem with that? Why is that such a big problem? It's like, it's nice, it's what the reader wants, it's what's expected from the genre. Just like, in fantasy, you're gonna have weapons, if you like. Well, do we
Right.
say that fantasy is formulaic because there might be weapons in it? No.
Exactly. Any genre. And as far as romance goes, some people, or a good majority, I'm not going to say all, because some people feel, well, a happily ever after, that, like, if that's not happening, they feel sometimes it's not real life. But that's why we read books, to escape. And
Exactly.
we
It's
want that
escapism.
happily ever after. When I pick up a romance book, I want at the end, I want everybody to be happy. I
Mhm.
don't want them to be miserable. Why did I pick up this story then? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's no change, there's no growth.
yeah,
Everybody's just so unhappy at the end. And then after that, I'm gonna be unhappy too because, right?
yeah.
Because that's what I read. But yeah, romance, there should be a happily ever after. I know there's some that are not, and that's great too. But it all depends also what the reader is looking for. And a lot of times readers at events will say, is this a happily ever after? Because that's what they want. They don't want to
Mhm.
invest the time in something that's going to make them feel lousy, right? And
Yeah,
that's why we read romance. That's why I watch romance on TV too, because it's feel good.
it
So
is.
so you started your career on a challenge, on a
Mhm.
dare, which I think is amazing. How long would you say it took to write that very first book?
That first book probably took about a year and a half, I suppose, something like that. I imagine it was very, very on and off. At that point, I had four children under the age
Wow,
of about six, um, you know, um, who were
that had to be
obviously not
difficult.
helping, you know. Not helpful at all. And like I say, I didn't know what I was doing. It took a long time to get it into shape because I mean sometimes I still do this now, but I'd be like, oh, I've got a good idea for a scene, that'll be fun to write, I'll write that scene. you know if there's one piece of advice I could give to new authors, it is start at the beginning and write until you get to the end, and do not write little bits and try to fit them in. It just makes it so much harder, at least if your brain works like I do.
Right,
um,
right. So
but
then,
yeah,
so what do you do now then? If you have like some dialogue that so you won't take notes anymore? Like, so how do you work that into your stories?
I will do notes. So I actually have right next to me, because I'm going to be doing some writing after this. This is the notebook that I'm currently using for the book that I'm drafting. Stupidly, on a tangent, trying to save the planet, I wrote the first book in this series, and then I thought, oh, there's loads of paper left in my notebook of notes, so I'll just use it for the second book as well. Why? 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 Like, what difference is this going to make to the planet long term? It's not. It's been driving me mad. Anyway, so yeah, I do. I have a notebook for each book that I write. So if I do think like, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be amazing if my hero showed his muscly arms at this point, I can write a little note, and I'll put things like that, their eye color, so I don't forget their age, like if maybe a little sketch of their house, the inside of their house, so that I know that when they're coming out of the dining room, they're walking into the kitchen, and a timeline as well.
Hmm.
I always do a timeline, especially because I've done a few Christmas books now, and the
I see
timelines.
one up. I see
Yeah,
one up
you
there. A
have.
Scottish Christmas.
Yeah,
Yes, very nice.
the timelines tend to be very tight on Christmas books, obviously, because you're leading up to Christmas with it. So that's one thing I definitely include in the notebook is a timeline of exactly the days and that everything's going to be happening in the story.
So let me ask you this, where you are, do you have what's called Christmas in July?
No, no,
Because
we don't. I have heard this is a thing.
yes, so your Christmas books, you really can be showing in July
I
because
need to think about that. I need to be doing some
we
social
see
media
you in the
posts about that.
Yeah, we see you in the United States. I don't know
Mhm.
how far Christmas in July goes, but as far as across the United States, but
Mhm.
it's definitely a thing. And people read Christmas books in July. Right now on TV, there's a ton. Like yesterday, when I sat down to watch TV with my husband, there was a ton, such a big selection of
Mhm.
Christmas movies.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's July. So that's
Mhm.
something that you could really take advantage of and
I
share
should.
your Christmas books in July for Christmas in July for us over here. Yeah,
Mhm.
over here in this side of the world. So I want two things I wanted to ask you
Mhm.
while you were telling me about your notes is the first one is when you wrote your first book,
Mhm.
did you write by hand? Was there
No.
electronics? Did you have well, I don't even remember what we had. I guess we had laptops 13 years ago. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Time goes so fast for me. So
Yeah.
you didn't write by hand. You typed it in?
I don't know if I had I can't actually remember. I may have been like a proper computer. But yeah, I typed it and yeah, and edited it and everything on a computer. And then I sent it off to Milton Boon, the publisher, and had a lovely rejection from them. But it just goes to show how little I knew, because now I understand that that particular publishing company, they have set rules for their
Oh,
romances that I just was not aware of. They have things such as that the hero and heroine need to meet very early on in the story. Neither of them
oh
can be
wow.
involved at all with anybody else,
Hmm,
even if it's a relationship that really isn't working out at the
that's
beginning of the book,
interesting.
that they're coming out of it. Things like that. They have these set rules. They have things that they're looking for. They have set word counts. And I was just like, oh, I've written a romance and they publish romance, so I'll send it off to them. Yeah, and so I had the loveliest letter just saying that it wasn't right for their list, but if I wrote, anything else that was more suitable for them, then, to
Yeah,
please
to
send it.
resubmit. Well, that
Yeah.
was nice. So then what did you do after that?
Well, then I kind of decided, well, I do want to have this book out, um, but I don't want to spend 2 years querying it, sending it out to different people and then waiting for them to respond. And when they don't want it, sending it out to another one. And I didn't honestly think of it as a serious thing, if you like. It wasn't a career by any means. So I thought, well, I'll try self-publishing because that looks fun and you've got control over everything and things like that. Don't think about how enormously hard it is to have to do everything
Yeah, everything.
with your publishing. Like, are you kidding me? Everything myself.
And
Um,
how about covers and stuff like that? Do you
exactly. Yeah.
also create your own covers?
Yes. Yeah. I did. I
Wow.
did everything. And also I'm an introvert, and I'm really not very good at putting myself out there. To this day, if somebody says, oh, your book sounds good, I'll buy it, I'll probably tell them like to go and get it from the library so they don't have to pay for a copy, or I'll be like, oh, I've got a copy I can send you. I didn't tell anyone that I was writing this book until I published it. And then I kind of like said on Facebook, like, oh, by the way, I've written a book.
I've written a book. But you know what? I don't think you're alone in that. I didn't let people know that I wrote either. As a matter of fact, a close friend of mine, she was a close friend at the time. We've lost touch since, but she messaged me and she said, did you really write a book? Because she saw it on social media, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I wrote a book. I feel, this is my personal belief. I feel it's good to keep these things to yourself, especially stories, because if we share, I don't know if you'll agree, but if we share the story that we're working on, even ideas, sometimes it loses something. It loses
Yeah.
its charm, or it loses something, and then I feel like I don't want to write it anymore. That's why I really talk about it. But it was
Mhm.
something that I never really did anyway.
Right.
Talk about my stories, and thank you. Talk about my stories and stuff like that. I got a coffee delivery.
Where's mine?
So now I could join you. You have tea. We
Yeah,
could
but I
ship it over, but it'll take a really long time.
want.
So now you strike me with the things that you have told me so far, that you're organized, that you're very okay. No,
It's all an illusion.
it's an illusion, right? Smoke and mirrors, smoke and mirrors. I like though that you have like you have a notebook for each book that you write. I mean, some people would say that's common sense, but I don't have that. But I'm not also not working on multiple. You work on multiple books at one time?
I didn't used to, and I don't like to in general, because I do find it difficult to switch between the two. But I don't actually have a choice at the moment, because of the publishing contracts that I'm under. So
Ah,
I'll be like at the moment, like last week, I finished my copy edits for my Christmas book. I'm drafting um, the book for spring at the same time, so I'm having to work on those at the same time. And then I've got another project that I needed to submit as well, just a month ago.
oh, wow.
So at one point they didn't quite overlap, but they did overlap a little. That I was working on 3 different books, and that was really difficult. The only way I can kind of deal with that is to really have a break between working on them, even if it's just to go and have dinner or something like that, so that
Right,
my brain kind of gets out of that story and I can put it
right.
back into the other one. So in an ideal world, I would only work on one story at a time. It's just at the moment I've got
So right now you can't.
commitments, so
Do
I
you?
can't.
That's great though. Do you write every day? Do you write every
No,
day?
no. I write most days, but not every day. I wouldn't write on my birthday, my kids' birthdays, things like that.
Right. So do you have a set schedule though, or no? Like, do you say, well,
No,
I'll write Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a time? Do you have like a time frame that you write?
no, no. I mean, like I say, I write most days. I think most writers do. Most serious writers write most days. If I want a day off, I would just take a day off, as long as I don't have a deadline, that I'm going to struggle to meet.
Now, getting back to your first book for a moment, you said you had submitted it and
Mm.
you got a rejection, very nice rejection letter. So
Mhm.
what happened after that? How did you
Yes.
proceed? What was your next steps with that one?
So yeah, that one I self-published that book and brought it out, like I say, with no fanfare whatsoever. Um, and whilst I agree with what you're saying about not wanting to share too much about it, that does mean that there's no one who knows about your book and no one's excited
Oh,
about your
well,
book.
I meant don't share too much about. I meant I don't like to share too much about it while it's in the works,
Yeah.
not after. But
Yes,
it,
but you don't have that build up of people who are like excited to get
yes,
your book,
that
you
yes,
know.
I have heard too that a lot of writers say, especially now with social media,
Mm,
a lot of writers say, or a lot of promoters, or anyone, I guess, in the business for anything, even like a movie, you
mm,
have to give people a little taste of what's coming up,
mhm.
because you have to stir up that interest.
Yeah,
And people want to know, if, especially if they've read books of yours in the past and enjoy them, they want to know if you have something else coming out.
yeah.
So yes, it's definitely beneficial to let people know. But I guess as a new writer, that's hard, because We have a lot of
is.
self-doubt, and sometimes we don't even know, like when we start any project, sometimes we say to ourselves, I don't even know if I'm going to finish it. I mean, it sounds
Oh,
terrible, but
yeah. No,
I've
it's
written
true.
books. I've written, I don't want to say books. I've written stories in the
Mhm.
past that have gone nowhere because I didn't finish them.
Mhm.
So how do you know in the beginning, right? This is for all aspiring
Yeah.
writers. How do you know that the project you're working on, you're actually going to finish? Like you don't want to put it out there and say, hey, I'm working on this book. And then 6 months later, you just scrap it. And then people are like, hey, what happened to that book you were working on?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times people will say the people closest to them had the most doubt. Like if you tell a relative or your friends, hey, I'm working on a book.
Mhm.
Sometimes those people are like, yeah, right, they're going to write a book. Like they don't even believe in the person. They have no faith in the person. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So and then people talk about it. Hey, how's that book coming along? And then the novelty just gets worn out, kind of. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I guess after you publish your first book, it's not as bad as when you have nothing published. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
So I
that's
don't know. I
true.
think that's a tough
Yeah,
that's a
and
tough one.
no, but I genuinely didn't know if I'd finished writing it. It really was just like a thing that I was doing
Yeah.
to to prove a point. Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know if I would finish it. I didn't know if it was going to be any good. But as soon as you do realize that that you do want to sell this book, you know, or even if you just realize that writing is what you want to do and you're working on a project that maybe doesn't go anywhere, people will still be interested in your journey if you are sharing interesting things about yourself and about your writing and your struggles, I
I
think.
agree.
But it is very difficult, if you are the sort of person who doesn't naturally want to go on social media and share about things. I've never woken up in the morning and thought, oh, what can I take a picture of to put on Instagram?
Right, right.
That's just not who I am. I have to consciously go, right, okay, I have to take some pictures to put on Instagram.
Right. Some people, yeah, it just comes
Yeah.
naturally and they love to do it and they say, what am I going to post about today? I
Mhm.
guess I could be a little guilty of that too. I post. I enjoy it though. I love social media, so
Mhm.
that's something I really like. So when did you know you were going to write a second book, or when did you have the urge? Was it while you were writing the first book, or was it like when you got almost finished with it, or after you published it? Like when did you say, "Hey, I'm going to do this again"?
I think it was after I published, and then I just came up with another idea.
Wow.
Um, and I was like, oh, okay, there we go. There's a second book. So I wrote the second book, and I thought, you know what? I don't want to self-publish this book unless I have to, because it was a lot of work, as anybody who self-publishes knows. And I just genuinely am not very good at selling myself, and at the marketing side of things. Not only do I not enjoy it, I'm not good at it. And so if I could find somebody who would do that for me, not only do I not have to do it, but I figured I'd probably sell many more books. So I'd actually interviewed an author. I used to have a book review website, and this author had just signed with a publishing company, and she was really happy, and she wrote kind of similar things.
Mm,
So I thought, okay, I'll contact them, and they actually offered me a contract for that book and for my first book as well,
nice.
and another one going forward. So that was when I became more traditionally published.
Right. Look at that. And 13 books later.
13? No, it was like 17 or 18.
Oh my gosh, for some reason I thought you said you had 13 published. Wow,
No,
17 or 18. And
yeah.
now do you write all of your books are under the same name?
Um,
And
I have I have a picture book, which is under my real name. Emma Bennet is a pen name, but the rest of them are all as Emma. Yeah.
wow. And then That's nice. You have a picture book. Where did you get the idea, or what inspired you to write a picture book, going from romance to a picture book?
Honestly, what inspired me was Prosecco. Funnily, I think I've got
Ah,
it here. Um,
Prosecco the drink.
yeah, Prosecco the drink. Yeah, I was. Here it is. It's called the Snotty Princess.
Oh, it's so
It
pretty.
is so pretty. So, my friend Caroline and we became friends because our dogs fell in love. It was a beautiful, slightly awkward moment. They fell in love, and it was like, okay, well, we better start hanging out. And it turns out that we really liked each other. Anyway, so one day we were sitting in her garden and we were sharing a bottle of Prosecco in the middle of the day, as you do. And I said, like, oh, I've had a few ideas for picture books over the years, but getting a picture book published is incredibly difficult. It
Mm,
is so competitive. Um, and then, so if you're going to go down the self-publishing route, then you need to be able to illustrate it. And I can barely draw a stick man. It's actually embarrassing. But my friend Caroline is extremely artistic. So she said in her American accent, she is from New Hampshire. She said, "Honey, I'll do it for you." um, and so she did, and it was absolutely wonderful to work alongside her, and she produced the most fantastic illustrations. They are so funny, especially when the princess really isn't feeling well. It is the color. I just love the colors. That's the king and queen. They catch the cold.
oh,
um,
very nice. Yes, she
yeah.
does great work. I love it.
And yeah, it's just poor Princess Sophie relaxing.
Ah, now
Um,
how do picture books work when it comes to illustrations? You give the pages to the designer, and the designer creates what she sees or he sees, or do you say, I want the princess, I want her laying in bed with
mhm,
the drip or whatever that was. Like, how does that
mhm.
work? Like, do you
So,
picture some things and make some notes of what you how you want the drawings?
well, because we were friends, we were just very much working on this, together as a project that we would enjoy doing together. So it really was, I remember us kind of sketching it out in her garden with the rest of the prosecco, and then so what we did, I'd written the story, so we looked up how many pages it needed to be because we weren't sure, and then we divided the story up into those number of pages, because there were
Mm,
like set number of pages that picture books are. And then we just chatted and we just thought, okay, what would be good to have as an illustration on this page? Right, this one's got quite a lot of writing, so we'll just have a small illustration at the bottom, or
mm.
we'll have a full page illustration on this page, and we'll actually move that writing onto the next one and combine it. So yeah, that was really fun, and we did like a little mock-up with ideas, and then she went away, and it was very much just back and forth with ideas.
So it's really different not only to write romance and then switch over to children's books, but also to be a solo writer, because basically, right, when you write your books, it's just
Mm-hmm.
you, and then to collaborate with someone else,
Mm-hmm.
right, and brainstorm and share ideas and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that was a big, not only the genre, but the collaborating part, more
Mm-hmm.
than one person. That was a big change too.
Yeah, and it was so much fun, and she had so many good ideas. Like she said, obviously a princess has to have rainbow hair. And I'm like, of course a
Of
princess
course.
has to have rainbow hair. You're kidding me? How did I not think of that? That's amazing.
I love that. That's really nice. I think it's nice to sometimes step out of what we're comfortable with
Hmm.
and then move on to something else.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. I've done that a few times. I've written some non-fiction books for writers, and that was just really nice to be able to step back from such big projects as a whole fiction book, because they're quite small books. There's no kind of extra fluff. It is like the information that you need, that I know on this topic. And that was really,
Oh,
really fun.
so you have helpful books for writers?
I hope they're helpful. Yes.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. That's great.
Thank
How
you.
many of those have you written?
3 of them. There's one that is all about using what was Twitter and is now X, as a writer, getting the most out of that. And there is another one about writing a book in a month. Like I used to do NaNoWriMo when that was more of a thing. And then the final one is all about marketing for writers and how to build your brand and promote yourself, basically.
That's really helpful. So where can writers find those books? On
They're
Amazon?
they're all on Amazon. They're all on my author page on Amazon.
And is it also ebook? Is it also Kindle Unlimited? Do you have them?
Yeah, yes, Kindle Unlimited is amazing. We love Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, they are paperbacks, they are ebooks, they're all enrolled on Kindle Unlimited. So many, many options.
Oh, very nice, guys. You hear that? Because Emma's written a lot of books, so she has a lot of helpful information to share. So if you're looking for those, check out Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. And then as far as your romance books go, they're also on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, right?
Yeah.
So now you said your first book took you about 1.5 years.
Yeah, probably.
Did that change the more books you wrote? Did that happen to seem to get easier, or did time, life play a factor in that? How does that work after you've written so many books? Because that's a lot of books you have.
It's a lot of books, and yeah, you would think that I know what I'm doing. I don't definitely.
But you do. You give.
I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm sure that you feel the same way.
You know what it is? I see you. So, from what I see, and I see your clips on YouTube, your shorts and stuff like that, you have such helpful and useful information for everyone. So when you pop up on my screen, I always listen to what you have to say. And you're active. I mean, you say you're an introvert, but you're active on YouTube. I feel, with your reels and your tips and your advice. And sometimes, I know a lot of times I think in your yard, but I've seen you like at book places and like you go off in the corner and you talk and you make a little video. Those are so fun. Oh my gosh. So how did you start getting involved in YouTube? What made you, as an introvert, like you say you are, and you're really not, big with social media, even though you are all over on YouTube, which I think is great. That first one must have been hard. Was your first YouTube video ever like bookish or writery? Or did you try something else on YouTube, like cooking? How did that all come about?
I think it would probably be easier to do cooking content some days, or Ultimate Clean with Me's. They get all the views, don't they?
Yes.
No, so I discovered the wonderful world of AuthorTube, and I thought that looks really cool, and that's something that would be great to get into. And there's a definite skill to being able to speak to a camera, to be able to speak to people, and that's a skill that's really, really useful for writers to have. It's useful for everybody to have.
Comfortably. Comfortably, where because you look unscripted. You look like you're just speaking from, the mind and from the heart, with everything that you know. So yes, that's not an easy thing to do, because some people are very uncomfortable on camera.
Yeah.
And they sound like, robotic. So it is difficult. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
It is difficult, but I thought, that would be a useful thing and might help me to find new readers. And stuff like that. So I thought I'll give this a go. So I waited until everyone was out of the house and set up, I think it was like an iPhone 5 or something that I had. And I was doing a 20-minute write with me with the idea. And I had it the wrong way. I had the phone vertical, which isn't what you do for long form video. But I did it, and I got a video out there, and started making other videos. And then I did quite a lot of live videos as well, live writing sprints and interviews and things like that, in order to get watch hours, to get monetized, because it's not easy. That is a lot of watch hours.
It's not easy, but
Yeah.
now you are monetized. So how do you find that? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to get it monetized because writing is my career, writing and other things. I'm also a freelance developmental editor. I teach a creative writing class at my local community center. I
Very
do
nice.
book coaching. I do all manner of other things that all build this kind of author career. So something that I was going to spend as much time on as I was with YouTube, I did want to monetize it. But once it got monetized, it was lovely because I was making a little bit of money, but also I could step back from it that little bit, because there wasn't that pressure to reach the watch hours that are required for you to become monetized. I had the subscribers that I needed, I had the watch hours. So, at one point, I think I was doing 2 long form videos a week, 2 shorts, and about 9 hours of lives as well. So a week. So it was a lot. It really was a lot. So as much as I liked doing the live sprints and things, it did take up a lot of time. And it was good to be able to step back from that, because at that point I got a new publishing contract, and so I really was needing to focus on writing more. The timing worked out quite well for that.
Right. So now, as far as YouTube goes, with keeping the monetization, are you still monetized, or because you drop back, do you lose that monetization?
No, you stay monetized. I think there is a thing that if you don't upload any videos for ages or something like that, that they might stop it. But basically, once you're monetized, you're monetized. So now I typically do 1 video a week and 1 or 2 shorts, and that's much more manageable.
Yeah, sure. I could imagine, compared to not, what'd you say? How many hours a week were you doing? 9?
Yeah, so about 9 hours of live streams a week.
And you have to think of those ideas, right? You have to be fresh and creative because you want people to watch.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
feel sometimes social media really takes up a big chunk of our lives, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does become addictive. There's challenges like on Facebook. I don't know if you're as active on Facebook as you are. Where would you say you're the most active across the platforms?
So I'm pretty much on everything, but I'm most active on Instagram, because that just happens to be where most of my readers are, which is very handy for me, as that's probably the social media that I like the most. I'm not a huge fan of it in general. TikTok in particular, I'm too old for TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok.
I can't cope with TikTok, but I am on it. I post a TikTok, a short or whatever you call it, on there every week. I have a presence on there, but my main social media would be Instagram.
So now, just getting back to when you first started again, since this was all a challenge, you never said to yourself, hey, I want to write a book one day. Was that something you wanted to do? I don't know too much about your background, business wise or work wise, career wise.
Yeah.
Were
So
you a teacher or anything?
I've never been very into the work thing, to be honest. I don't think it would work. I'm a very independent soul. I don't think it would work very well for me to work for a company or anything like that. Yeah, it would not be good. So no, I had young children. I was busy bringing them up and home educating them.
You were homeschooling the kids.
Yeah, we homeschooled 22 years now.
Wow. Were you homeschooled too?
No, I was not. So that was absolutely fantastic. So it's always been very much fitting writing in around that. But now, I've got two of them off at university, the third one going off to university in just a couple of months. Even my baby is going to be 17 soon. So I just have so much more time to be able to devote to my writing now. And so it's very naturally grown into a career. I'm not even sure of the point that I kind of decided, oh, okay, this is like a career. I do this.
It just rolled into it, right? Like
I took advantage, if I could, of opportunities that came my way. I fitted things in when I could. I let go of things that didn't, that weren't working out. Like, for example, the book review website that I had. That was wonderful. I really loved doing that, making connections with authors and being sent all beautiful books and things. But I wasn't comfortable reviewing other people's books in case if there was a book that I didn't particularly like. That's a very subjective thing. In a lot of cases, and I did not feel comfortable because I know what it's like to get, we all know what it's like to get a bad review, and if I didn't give my honest opinion on this book, well, what was the point of me having this book review website? Why would people trust me if every single review on there was 5 stars because I was wanting to support authors, which I do want to do?
Exactly. Yeah, I could see how that would not work. And
Yeah,
as an author yourself, you don't want, and just as a human being, you don't want to give someone a poor review.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. It's such a thin line because really, as authors, we should want, it hurts when you get a bad review, like especially when somebody gets their first 1 star. Like sometimes people will write on social media, I know it's coming. Or they go, well, this was the day I got my first 1-star review. Like they make an announcement about it. But I think, first of all, I think it looks good when people look up the book and see the bars, 5 stars, 4 stars, that there's a variety, because that shows that there's some honesty, that people are actually reading the books, actual readers, that they're not,
it's not just your friends. It's not
it's not just your friends or family and people are just saying, oh yeah, I love the book. It's honest, because even the most, famous books, I mean, look at Hemingway, he's an icon. Not everyone loves his work. So not everyone, like if you look up a book and it's just 5 stars, that gold thing across, the gold bar across 5 stars, that every review is 5 stars. I mean, that just doesn't seem legitimate. That just doesn't seem real. I wouldn't want to read a book. Sometimes when you see a book at 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, or somebody tore it apart, sometimes that makes a reader want to read it even more. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Don't you think? 'Cause everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own view of a story. Reading is just so interesting, and the way people look at stories differently. Now, let me ask you this. When you write, do you, in your head, do you see like a film? Do your characters appear in front of you clear as day? Or do you see blurry faces? Like, how does that work when you sit down and you start working on your story? What does your brain process? What do you see in your head?
It kind of plays out like a movie, I suppose, or like at least, individual scenes.
Clearly? Is it clear in your head?
I think it's quite clear, and I'm kind of getting down what's there with some scenes. Other times, I'm just kind of working out what's gonna happen next without it being in my mind. It really does depend. But there are often the most romantic scenes will make, like the most important scenes, you could say, in a romance book. Often they will kind of play out in my mind. Like a film, but
how about,
maybe not all of them.
How about voices? Are the voices distinct Do you hear voices in your head when you write?
Yeah.
You know, I love asking this
Do you
question
hear
because
voices?
they're gonna come and take you away pretty soon. They're gonna
They're
lock you up
coming,
and
yeah.
listen to you.
She hears voices all the time. I definitely, when I'm reading through my writing, I'm reading it as the characters, if they're speaking, like in my head, and I will pull their faces if I'm trying to work out if I've described things well. So if I say, I can't do that, he grimaced, I will kind of probably mouth, I can't do that, and pull the face myself, which probably looks quite peculiar if anybody was watching.
Oh, how funny. Yeah. If you set up a camera in where you work over your desk, it probably would be funny to
Yeah, well, I
see.
think when I did the live writing sprints, I think I usually used to turn off the camera just because my face is just so expressive.
Oh, wow.
And you do not want to be looking at that for a 25-minute
People may
writing
say,
sprint,
she's a
as I'm
little
going like,
cuckoo. But that's the writing process. That's how it goes sometimes.
"Mm,
So that's how it works with your writing. When you're reading a book, how does that work? Because the reason why I bring this up is I recently just found out, like, I don't know, a year or two ago,
mm,
that some people, and it amazed a lot of people too, because people never thought about this before until I brought it up. I'm sure many have, but some of the people that expressed, that commented on social media, they said, wow, I thought everybody, when they read, they saw a film. When you read, is it the same thing? Do you hear different
mm,
voices? Do you see the characters in your head? Do you see the background? Like if somebody says, "Hey, they walked into the kitchen," what do you
mm."
see? Do you see the kitchen clear as day? Do you see the characters? Do you hear the footsteps? Like how much of the reading experience is visually, going on in your mind when you read?
I'm wondering if that depends a little bit on how immersed you are in the story at the time. So
Mm.
I think sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm probably always have a picture in my mind of what's going on, but how detailed that picture is maybe depends. So I've always got a few books on the go. Um, and sometimes I will pick one up just to read for kind of 10 minutes, in which case maybe I don't get into that zone, if you
Mm.
like. So maybe if I'm reading for longer, so I tend to read in bed every night. That's like my longest reading period usually. Although I do sometimes quite like to declare I'm doing research and just settle down on the sofa for like an hour in the middle of the day. It feels so decadent, doesn't it? Yeah. So I'm wondering whether that. I mean, do you find that you've got it like playing, or is no? You're just kind of reading the words.
I do not have that. I found out that some readers feel the words, where some readers have more of a visual uh, picture in their head,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was fascinating. That's why I love to ask this question, because I reading itself is such an individual experience, and
Mm-hmm.
writing is such an individual experience. So to know what goes on in someone's brain or someone's head while they're doing it. So like while I'm writing, the faces are never clear. They're like a
Right.
blur.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's yeah, it's just such an individual process. So that's why I'm so fascinated when,
Yeah.
like you say, the things that you see or the voices. I don't have that. And then do you have the people that you picture? Do you ever picture celebrities, or are they regular people or people that you've known maybe in the past or saw? Do you ever see a person walking down the street and say, "Oh my gosh, that's a character from my book"? You ever do
No,
that?
I don't. And I was wondering actually whether you, because you say that you just see like blurry faces,
Yes.
like when you're describing your characters, then how do you describe them? I've just got kind of a picture of them in my mind. They're not based on anybody. And I know some people will take pictures of celebrities or something like that that look like they envisage their characters, and they'll use
Yes.
that. So how do you, if it's blurry, how do
Isn't
you?
that weird? Some people have a board too, of their characters.
Hmm.
It's a feeling. It's just a feeling that I get. Isn't that, that's, I don't
Mhm.
know. I mean, one day I'm going to meet other writers that say, "Oh, that's me too." I have
Mm.
met someone that said their faces are blurry as well, but
Right.
it's just like a feeling. I guess it goes along with the name and the personality, and I just picture, but they're blurry. The
Okay.
faces are never clear. They're fuzzy. If anything is more clear sometimes, it's more of the body and maybe the
Mhm.
clothing sometimes that they're wearing or the way they're handling their, what they're doing with their hands or something. But yeah, faces are always blurry.
Mhm.
It's like they're a presence,
Yeah.
but they're not a clear presence. I don't know how to explain it. Nobody ever really asked me after I asked them. So this is like the first time someone asked me that.
Oh, no,
So
it's interesting. So like, but if they had like, you know, deep blue eyes or full lips or something like that,
I don't see
you
it.
don't
So
find
what
it.
I do is I have to say now that I'm thinking about it, the character, okay, so let's say I have a veterinarian in one of my
Mhm.
books, and he came to tend to the main character's sister's dog.
Mhm.
And when she saw him, I described him from what she saw.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can, so in that respect, I can say that, and I knew, I mean, I pictured him in my mind, but not detailed. Like I knew he was
Okay.
going to have dark hair and he was going to have, a fit physique, that he looked like he went to the gym, and
Mhm.
his clothing, I think, actually was more important in the scenes because he wasn't dressed like a veterinarian. He was like dressed
Yeah.
like a nicely, like a well dressed guy, but
Sure.
not businessy or medically or anything like that. But yeah, it's interesting when we read and when we write the things that we see in the process,
Yeah.
right?
Clothing I find quite difficult, but particularly wedding dresses. And for some reason, I went through a stage of having to describe wedding dresses in like book after book after book. And I was like, I cannot do this. I am so bad at describing wedding dresses.
So how do you work when you come up with a problem like that? How do you work through it? Do you make little drawings or little scribbles, or you just like push yourself to like come up with those wedding?
I
You look at magazines,
Yeah,
maybe.
I think I actually went on Pinterest. In the end, for one, it was about the third one that I'd needed to do, and I was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Like, I need professional help here. And so I
To
kind of
describe the
put
wedding
in,
dresses.
yeah, I put in like some keywords of, what I thought that character would choose to have as her wedding dress, and came up, and then then you can kind of describe from the picture, if
Yes,
you like. So that was really helpful.
that's a
But
big help.
it really was like, I think I found it hard to write one or two, and then it got to the third, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know wedding dresses. Like, are you
I
kidding
can't do
me? I
it
don't know
anymore.
the names for the different types, and I
Oh, right. Yes.
I don't know. I don't
The
know.
shape, the frame, yeah, the bodice and
Exactly.
all, yeah, the way it's formed, the way it hugs the body, yeah, that's and the
Yeah.
buttons, everything
I
has a name, and the lace, certain kind
Mhm.
of lace has a name, and so yeah, and that other word that I can't think of. So, what would you say as a writer for you personally is the most difficult?
Oh, the most difficult. There were so many horrible, difficult bits. Um, Probably like developmental edits can be a bit stinky, honestly. So that's probably the bit that I find hardest to do.
Well, when you're writing the story, do you find that you have to work harder maybe on describing the characters so the readers get a better view of what they, how they should appear? Or do you find the scenery maybe a little bit challenging? Things like of that nature. Like while you're writing the story, do you
Yeah.
feel like you have to work harder on one thing, describing the clothing, if that even comes into play, or
Mhm.
accents, things like that?
I think probably the thing that I need to remember to do is to put in description of landscapes and things in particular, because I do tend to get carried away with the conversation between the characters. And then it's like, okay, hold on. This is all very good. We've got all the feelings, blah, blah, blah. Where are they? Let's put them in a proper context here. There wasn't enough for the reader to be able to fully, get this scene. So that tends to be what I need to do in the second draft, is just add more layers, if you like, of detail onto that, rather than the dialogue will be pretty much there. But it's things like that. It's more the description that I need to be aware that I need to make sure that I build that up more.
Okay, that's very interesting. I know other writers have said that is a challenge for them too sometimes, or sometimes there's not enough dialogue and there's too much in the head, the character in the head thinking, talking in the head of what's going on. I know that's challenging too for some writers. Now, correct me if I'm mistaken, but you said you now write in order. You write from beginning to middle to end.
I do. I try, because I have had books where I've got in a little bit of a mess, and something that I've done for the book that I'm drafting at the moment, and seems to have made a big difference, is I've been using a proper outlining method. So Thomas J. Beleza, you've been on his channel, and I've been using his 27 points plot point outline method for his book that was out a few months ago, and that has made a huge difference. Like I say, I'm very awkward. I'm very difficult. I'm not good at being told what to do. Not that he does, dictate what to do, but I kind of do his method loosely, because he has a lot of different steps in his method to build up the narrative, which particularly works for him because he writes the amazing high fantasy. So I kind of pared it down to make it work for me. But this is the first book that I've written that I haven't got to about 15,000 words and gone, okay, what am I doing? I know what this is leading to at the end, but I don't know what's going to happen in this bit. I have a vague idea. So because I actually took the time to use his method, it just meant that I was just able to write
life easier.
Yeah, without having that kind of existential crisis in the middle.
Okay, so that's good to know. And a shout out to Thomas Beleza and his book, right? It could be very helpful.
It's definitely very helpful. No good about it. It's fantastic.
It was so good to chat with you. So now with the book that you're working on, well, you said you're working on a few projects now, but what is the next book that we could expect for you to release?
The next book is going to be book 2 in my Castle Cove series. So that's the one that comes after this one. And you start at the, if I turn that, and you start at the Happily Ever After bookstore. So this is a Christmas book, and it's set in a coffee shop. And it's an enemies to lovers, which has been so fun. It was just so fun to write. So that's going to be out end of October, I believe.
Oh, wonderful. Just in time for the holidays.
Exactly.
Right, just in time for the holidays. Well, it was so nice to chat with you. We'll have to chat again because there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover. This hour went super quick.
It did.
I hope, I can't even believe it was an hour. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you had a good time. I learned a lot about you, which is why I love to do these chats that we have. I love to get in the minds of other authors, and it's very, very interesting. I find it very interesting, that's for sure. And you were such a delight.
Thank you. So were you.
So thank you. Thank you so much. So all of your books can be found on Amazon.
They can.
And on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you for joining me today. And thank you for everyone who watched today and listened to my chat with romance author and children's author and nonfiction author and YouTube extraordinaire, which we can find you too on YouTube as Emma Bennet.
Yeah.
As Emma Bennet. And I do recommend everybody check it out because she really has useful, helpful information. I know because I listen to her. So
thank you.
It was so nice that we actually got to chat because we've known each other on social media for a while,
Yes, we have.
and we never had a chat before. So this is the first time, and I'm looking forward to our next one. So, and I hope you get some cooler weather.
Thank you. Yeah, so do I. It's not good.
Yeah, I know the heat is horrible. Well, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I know you said you're going to get to writing, so I'm going to let you do that.
Okay,
All
thank you
right.
very much, Stephanie.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.